I'm Hugh Stewart. This is News for Scotland on the Scotland Channel. Last Saturday, the UK Parliament in London was recalled for an emergency sitting to pass a one-day bill on nationalising the failed steel smelter and mill in Scunthorpe, South Yorkshire. The UK Labour government argued that Scunthorpe has a unique strategic position in the UK economy and could not be allowed to close, even if it will cost taxpayers millions to maintain it. Scottish MPs have been asking why these same arguments were rejected when it came to keeping open Scotland's only oil refinery in Grangemouth. Surely it's strategic for an oil producer like Scotland to enjoy the value added which comes from refining the raw materials into the finished products, diesel, petrol and aviation fuel. The Grangemouth refinery, however, will close its refining function in a few weeks, while the UK government spends millions purchasing coal to keep Scunthorpe's furnace going. Stephen Flynn, the SNP leader in the London Parliament, asked, why do Labour consider British Steel more important than Grangemouth? Brian Leachman, the Labour MP for Falkirk and Alloa, repeated on X his recent letter to Prime Minister Keir Starmer and said that the workers at Grangemouth deserve the same government intervention that would keep Grangemouth working. Apart from the outcomes, Scunthorpe is saved while Grangemouth closes, there are strong points of comparison between the two industrial sites. Both had Chinese owners or shareholders who wanted out, both require big investment to bring their efficiency up to modern standards, and both have been described as strategic. But clearly Scunthorpe is more strategic if you take London's point of view. The trade union campaign to keep Grangemouth open has argued that the plant needed to change as the Scottish economy transitions away from carbon-burning fuels, possibly to refine green alternatives. Surely it could have been kept in production until the new fuels were ready to take over. The Labour government in London, backed by the Scottish government, have promised Grangemouth £200 million for Project Willow, which promises to replace the refinery with new jobs in unspecified future industries. But these will only be a few hundred, and a generation of Grangemouth workers will have to wait many years for these new industries to grow. The Scunthorpe plant too has to modernise. Its old coal coke burning furnaces could eventually be replaced by modern electric systems. Now these use huge amounts of electricity, but that could be sourced from North Sea wind power, assuming an end to the UK's dysfunctional energy market, which artificially boosts the selling price of green wind electricity. Unlike Grangemouth, the Scunthorpe plant will stay in production until decisions are made about its long-term future or technology. Dr Ewan Gibbs of the Keep Grangemouth Working campaign said that the United Trade Union has a plan sitting with both Scottish and UK governments to produce SAF, that's sustainable aviation fuel at Grangemouth. But this plan includes keeping the existing plant and skilled workers going at the site while the new plant is built. He said it would actually be much harder to start from scratch instead of gradually transferring production over by keeping the plant open for now and keeping the workers in their jobs. Isn't it strategic to keep open a plant which could be making the fuel of the future, as Stephen Flynn argued in the London Parliament last Saturday? If Scunthorpe is important to the UK, is it not the case that Grangemouth is important to Scotland's national interest? Under devolution, however, strategic decisions about Scotland's economy are not made in Scotland. Scotland would vote for independence by a significant majority if a second referendum was held tomorrow. This is according to a poll carried out for the national newspaper. The poll, conducted by Find Out Now, showed that 52% of Scots would vote yes to leave the Union in a rerun of the 2014 vote. That's an 11-point lead over the 41% of Scots who would back no. In total, 7% of Scots said they didn't know how they would vote, and so with those removed, 56% of Scottish voters said they would back independence, against 44% who would vote for the Union. The Find Out Now poll counted 1,417 Scottish adults between April the 7th and 11th, and then a nationally representative sample of 1,112 was selected from them to predict how a second independence referendum might go. The question used was, if another Scottish independence referendum was held tomorrow with the question, should Scotland be an independent country, how would you vote? Subsamples suggest that every region of Scotland except for the south would vote for independence, with the strongest backing for yes in Glasgow and the Highlands and Islands. Among those aged 16 to 29, 67% backed yes against 22% for no. For the oldest age group polled, those aged 75 and older, 65% backed the Union to 33% who backed yes. Meanwhile, the National Yes Registry launched its #GetCountedForIndependence campaign last weekend. The idea is to encourage yes groups to link up on an indie app and to help grow the direct communications with the grassroots movement. Details about #GetCounted, that's capital G, capital C, the #GetCounted app can be found on the National Yes Registry website. That's all one word, nationalyesregistry.scot. The Tories have attacked First Minister John Swinney for awarding a £20,000 pay rise for Scottish ministers, the first pay rise they've had since Alex Salmond brought in a pay freeze 16 years ago. It's understood that Mr Swinney will not be taking a pay rise himself. Craig Hoy, the Conservative spokesperson for local government and finance, said that these huge pay rises cannot be related to performance in office, which he described as abysmal, without mentioning that most of Scotland's services and economy are outperforming those in England and Wales, despite Scotland having one hand tied behind its back by Westminster. He also blamed the Scottish Government for cuts that Westminster is responsible for, while failing to mention that, unlike the UK politicians who have received pay increases in 12 out of the last 16 years, Scottish ministers actually had their pay packets frozen since 2009, resulting in them making more than £2.2 million available to public spending from their own pay packets. Hoy also failed to mention that the Tories were happy for the King of England to receive a £45 million pay rise while they were in government. Pro-independence candidates standing for Holyrood have been urged to endorse a new campaign calling for unity across the movement. Liberate Scotland, an umbrella group representing a number of pro-independence organisations, has urged candidates to join their steering committee with the aim of electing a yes majority to Holyrood. Candidates have also been encouraged to endorse Liberate Scotland's declaration, which includes a call to support Liberation Scotland's push to have the country decolonised by the United Nations. Sarah Salyers, Director of Liberation Scotland and Salvo, said the organisations would not be standing any candidates in next year's election, but said the campaigns would welcome anyone working to liberate Scotland from the fraudulent union with England and to achieve independence through decolonisation, in a cross-party, non-partisan strategy and approach to the Holyrood 26 election. And she added, with the UK government continuing to block the legal and inalienable right of Scots to self-determination, and with successive elected majorities of nationalist politicians in Scotland failing to deliver independence, Liberation Scotland intends to end the colonial exploitation and domination of Scotland and its people by the Anglo-British state. Fences put up to keep deer out of a Scottish tree planting project trapped the animals inside, leading to a loss of around half the trees planted, an inspection report found. Brewdog's planting project in the Lost Forest of Kinrara estate near Aviemore had set out to plant around 1 million trees on the estate after purchasing the land in 2020, claiming it would help to remove twice as much carbon from the environment as the firm emits. But a report by Scottish forestry officials said the Aberdeenshire-based Brewdog have inadvertently fenced in the very animals they were hoping to keep out, leading to the loss of around half the saplings planted. Scottish Forestry confirmed that 1.1 million had already been received by the firm and a further 1.6 million is agreed for the second stage of the planting. The Scottish Government agency added it was a requirement for the firm to replace the lost trees, and that the last site visit indicated that this has taken place. Europe now rejoining the EU, or at least the customs union, would provide a much needed boost to the UK economy, according to the campaign group European Movement UK. The discourse around Brexit is changing, say the group, as recognition of the immense damage caused to the UK economy, estimated to be around $100 billion a year, has led to a growing number of people in England questioning whether Brexit was a good idea after all. Scotland voted decisively against leaving the EU by 62%, whilst England, mainly because of mainstream media's wall-to-wall coverage of Nigel Farage, voted in favour of leaving the bloc, but only by a wafer-thin margin. Because Scotland's in the UK, Scotland was dragged out of the single market anyway, with an estimated £3 billion worth of damage to our economy every year. Nevertheless, Scotland's economy is still performing better than the rest of the UK, despite the UK working against Scotland's interests, with decisions like closing down Grangemouth, Scotland's only oil refinery, and forcing Scotland to have its oil refined in one of England's 5 refineries, despite the fact that England produces virtually no oil. That decision will cost 3,000 Scottish jobs, both directly and in the wider supply chain. In the recent debate in Westminster on the issue forced by a public petition, James McCleary, MP for the Liberal Democrats, who speaks on behalf of them for Europe, told the gathered parliamentarians, "If we listen carefully, we can still hear echoes of the Tories' botched Brexit deal promises, whispers on the wind. Remember sunlit uplands, global Britain, endless opportunities, but nearly 5 years on, after the deal came into effect, the sunlit uplands look suspiciously gloomy and global Britain seems isolated," he said. The Lib Dems were one of the 4 English unionist parties who campaigned for Scotland to remain in the UK in 2014, just 2 years before Brexit, promising a better future for Scotland if we stay in the UK. Mobile phones are a distraction in classrooms and interrupt pupils' learning. That was a conclusion of a Scottish Government study published last August. Jenny Gilruth, Education Minister, said at the time that the Government did not want to introduce a total ban, but to leave that choice to local councils. Now we hear that Perth and Kinross Council will be the first in Scotland to ban their use in class altogether. From August, students there won't be allowed their phones during lessons unless the teacher needs them for a specific educational purpose. The council will monitor the policy and report after 2 years. Under a new system, when parents want to contact their child, it will be in the old-fashioned way by talking to the school office. A spokesperson for Perth and Kinross said that safeguarding and welfare of children was the priority, and while we can't uninvent the mobile phone, it's necessary to set boundaries for behaviour during class. All councillors on the Learning and Families Committee supported the ban. Ofcom, the UK government body which supervises digital communications, found that young people are aware of the risks from online behaviour, but most feel that the benefits outweigh the risks. 67%, according to a survey from 2022, had come across potentially harmful content. This could include misinformation, scams or fraud, bullying or other abusive behaviour. Most young people, however, didn't report these incidents. A survey from Internet Matters from 2018 found that 7 in 10 teenagers wanted to be protected from dangerous online content and felt that parental controls were a good idea. Social Security Scotland began its work in 2018 and is gradually taking over from UK-based agencies. It now delivers over a dozen benefits, including 7 not available in the other UK nations, for example, the Scottish Child Payment. Work has begun to move over 66,000 people to the Scottish Adult Disability Living Allowance. This new benefit will be paid by Social Security Scotland instead of the DWP. There will be no gaps in payment or reductions in support because of the transfer. People getting the DLA do not need to do anything, as the transfer will happen automatically. Social Security Scotland will send letters to let people know when their benefit is being moved, and another letter once the move is complete. The transfer process will take 4 to 8 weeks. Cabinet Secretary for Social Justice, Shirley-Ann Somerville, said, "I am pleased work has begun to transfer the benefit awards of every adult in Scotland currently getting DLA over to our new benefits." She says, "I want to reassure people affected that their payments will transfer safely and securely, with no gaps or reductions to the support they receive." She continued, "The Scottish Government is committed to ensure everyone gets the financial support they're entitled to, and this has not changed following the UK Government's announcement on welfare." Social Security Scotland is based in Dundee and also has an office in Glasgow. Once transfers from the UK agencies are complete, it will be responsible for 17 benefits, supporting 1.8 million people and providing payments of around £5 billion a year. The ethos of the Scottish system, in contrast to the attitude of some UK agencies, is trust, dignity and fairness and respect. The system has been designed with consultation with people who have lived experience of requiring various kinds of help, which is regarded as their right. Although the Scottish Government is increasingly in charge of administration for the new systems, ultimately the funds available depend on decisions made by the UK Government in London. The austerity policy of the current UK Labour Government will put the Scottish Government under serious strain in years to come. Funding, however, is secure at least for the current financial year. That winds up our stories for this week. Join us again on the Scotland Channel every Friday night from 7 p.m. Don't forget, once released, you can view all our shows anytime on the Scotland Channel. Support us by linking, sharing and subscribing to our YouTube page, thescotlandchannel.tv. Thanks for watching.